if teams aren't generally worried about playing Georgia this coming year, right? I mean, they already are. Right? You're playing number one team. You gotta, if you're a Kentucky this year or Florida, or whoever it is, Auburn, Texas, you should be worried about playing Georgia just in general because of how good the team is. But I think, I think that Carson Beck probably will take that big step that people are expecting out of the second year starter, right? Over the course of when you're playing football, and especially from an NFL perspective, there's kind of a start count that they look at, right? NFL teams want you to have started around 2 years for development purposes, right? They want you to have played more than 14, 15 games because a lot of times in that second half of that is where quarterbacks can take a really big jump, right? They're playing at a faster pace. Well, Carson Beck has been in college. This will be year 5 in college and year 2 as the starter. And everything that I've seen indicates that he is ready to take a step forward and move on. And it honestly isn't even because of things I saw on the field. It's because of things I saw off the field. If we rewind, right? Now I'm finally getting to the point of this. If we rewind, Carson Beck this whole time, and Kirby has said it over and over again, but Carson Beck's a really quiet guy. It's and I've interacted with Carson outside of football settings. I have friends that know him. He's a quiet person, right? This is he's not like shy, and he's not gonna not talk to you or anything. It's not like I don't think he has any like social anxiety or anything like that, but he's not this big, he doesn't have big energy. He doesn't have that rah leadership. He's not an in your face kind of guy, and there are plenty of quarterbacks that aren't like that. And Georgia's had plenty of quarterbacks. Stetson was a little bit more rah than Carson. Jake Fromm was a little bit more rah than Carson. I think a lot, Aaron Murray was. Carson more calm, more collected, more laid back. I think he's not necessarily your typical football player. I don't know, man. Dude's from Jacksonville, and maybe he's just a little bit different, and that's the only way to put it. But you look at the press conference, right? The Dean and Matt and I kind of briefly discussed this on our riding home, but I want to expand on it a little bit. There's the press conferences after the games for Georgia. The way it kind of works is in the south end zone, right? So the end zone that's closer to where the cemetery is behind the stadium, that side. So the opposite side is the one with the scoreboard. That side. That's not the south. That's the east end zone. I'm an idiot. That's the east end zone. Under there, in the creps and the depths of the stadium, that's where the press conferences go after the game. Right? There's a room in there that Kirby does it in that's more official, and then there's kind of these little areas where they have the players, and all the players go at once at the same time. Anywhere between like 5 and 8 players is how many. Carson, the quarterback, always gets a bigger podium. They always draw a bigger crowd. And, they're always late. Well, Carson, they're almost always the last person to come in there and begin their interview. Well, Carson Beck kind of strolls in there, and he's approaching the group of reporters with cameras and microphones that are ready to start talking to him about G-Day, and he cracks a joke on his way up. He's like, "Oh, over here. I guess this is my spot." And right that moment on, I was like, okay, Carson, he was initiating the conversation. He was initiating the joke. And that's not something that we saw, out of him, especially not towards the media. We just didn't see Carson get super personable and things like that. And his demeanor was completely different, really, during the entire interview. And especially from exactly a year ago during last spring, where, even if to people like me and maybe other people close to the program that were like close to 100% certain that Carson Beck was going to end up being the starting quarterback, there was at least a little bit of a competition last spring against Brock Vandegrift. And Carson wasn't actually told he was the starter until August, so he wasn't the guy a year ago. And now he seems like he's the guy, and you can tell it from his teammates too. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. I'm the guy telling you need to sign up for the Dawg Post newsletter if you haven't already done that. The link is in the description of this video down below. I'm talking about Carson Beck. On the website, we talk about everything Georgia Bulldogs. football, it's your fix, right? If you're a junkie for this stuff, I know I'm a junkie for sports content. Make sure you are checking it out. Make sure you're signing up for our newsletter. It only takes a few seconds. All you got to do is give us your email address, and then you're plugged in, and we'll push out content to you in your inbox every single day. So the players, they're kind of, the quarterback room is also separated. And I know that my hands, and I don't have a great visual representation, but there's this big area where all the players are, and then there's like a little door, and the quarterback is kind of in its own spot during this. So, and almost always the quarterback interview, partially because they started last, but also because there's just more to talk about with them most of the time. At least people have more to ask about it. It ends up taking longer. So he ends up being the last one out. And so, but to get out to the golf carts where all the players get carted off after this, they have to go through the room that Carson Beck is in with all of the reporters. And so guys like Michael Williams and his receivers like Dominic Lovett and Dylan Bell, they were some of the ones that walked through, and all of them, pretty much every single one of those players, I think outside of Juan, when they walk by, it's to stop and mess with Carson Beck. It's to stop and say something to Carson Beck. I think it was Dom Lovett that, it was one of the receivers that did this, but they're walking by and Carson and them are right there. He's walking by. He gets kind of behind the group of reporters, and he's like, Carson Beck. That's my Dominic Lovett impression. Carson Beck. That's how he said it. They're just trying to mess with him, get him to start laughing during the interview. All of them are walking by. They're yelling, 1-5, let's go. That's Carson Beck, the quarterback. Stuff like that. They're messing with their guy. They're messing with their buddy. And they did that last year. But now there's a whole nother year of chemistry and him being the guy, and that's established. And returning to what he did and staying and sticking around and, never really flirted with the transfer portal, even though he could have went out and competed for a job somewhere else if there was a quarterback needy team, even in the SEC. Probably could have done that a couple of years ago. Waits his turn at Georgia, stays year 4. He finally gets his opportunity, plays very well, evaluates the situation and deems that it's better to return to Georgia for a 5th year, and that's going to make people fall in love with him, right? Another year, and in this day and age, he stays again. And I think that the players understand that. Look, the guy that I was talking about, that it seems like he's grown chemistry with, and Dominic Lovett is a transfer himself, so he understands that more than anybody. He's more comfortable and relaxed, and he is the guy. And it's apparent that the interview, he's admitted it. He's talked about, of course, the comfort level is a lot different. Kirby thinks that as well. A couple weeks ago in a press conference, Kirby Smart mentioned how, look, he's starting to grow as a vocal leader, starting to grow into this. Those are the things that I'm seeing him kind of improve in the most. It's obvious. And if that's the case, I think Georgia's offense is going to be even better than it was. Right? I already thought that Georgia's offense was going to be really good this year. I think that it would surprise me if it's not one of the top 10 offenses. If you told me it wasn't one of the top 10 offenses, I'd be pretty surprised. Top 5, I understand top 5 can be kind of lofty, but those are the numbers that they were messing around with, and that's kind of the classification that they were teetering in last year. So I think that they can carry over and do that again, just because I think the offense has potential to be better. Will it be better? I don't know. I think that they've got a lot of key pieces. I think that he's shown some obvious chemistry with the receivers. I thought he showed some obvious chemistry with Kobe Young, and that's something that's only going to grow as the year goes on, so another real weapon for them. People that are comfortable and people that are the guy and have played a lot of college football. He's older. He's the best in the sport, according to a lot of people. If he's comfortable and they take a step forward in this passing game, watch out. Georgia's going to put up 50 on a few people again. Thanks for watching.